You're listening to the Inspired Mom MDs Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cindy Van Prague. I help physician moms take back control of their time and energy so they can prioritize what matters most and thrive at work and home. In each episode, I bring honest conversations, inspiring stories, and practical strategies, including interviews with incredible women who are redefining success on their own terms. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to Inspired Mom MDs Podcast. Today, I am joined by Karen Geiger, a speech-language pathologist, therapeutic journaling facilitator, and book coach who is doing something really unique at the intersection of brain science, language, and storytelling. Karen's work explores how the words we use don't just reflect how we think, they actually shape our cognitive load, our resilience, and our ability to move through high stress periods of life. Yay. She blends speech language pathology, cognitive neuroscience, and structured writing techniques to help people navigate transitions like burnout and grief, and even the identity shifts that come with perimenopause and menopause. She's also a speaker on the research behind journaling for brain fog and mental clarity. And she's created programs supporting both physicians and medical students, especially at a time when resilience and empathy are slowly declining. First, I want to welcome you to the show. I'm so excited that we can talk today.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I am really excited to talk to your audience.
Oh, yeah, they are going to learn so much. I'm really excited about these topics that I briefly skimmed over. Now let's dive into
It
them a
sounds
little
like a
deeper.
lot.
It does, but no, we'll make it really clear. Okay. So first, let's just start with your story for a little background. You have training in speech language pathology. How did that evolve into journaling and narrative work?
Sure. Well, my first love was always language and writing. So I was an English major undergrad and then quickly realized I don't know what this can become except for maybe a teacher or a full-time writer, which I didn't really want to do at the time. So I went to graduate school for communication disorders because I felt like that was a really nice link. And I graduated with my master's in that and always worked in rehab and acute care and a little bit in nursing homes. I stayed home, raised my kids. As they started to leave the nest, it was a little bit of, now what am I going to do? I wanted to return to that creative spark that I had. And I had always delved a little bit into writing, just for me, nothing for anybody else's eyes. And I'm one of those people that I want to see what's going on behind the scenes. And I thought, well, I'm going to take a book coaching course because I want to see exactly how a book is supposed to be made. What are the ins and outs? What are the plot lines, the structure, the must-haves? And so while I was taking that course, it was extensive. It's through the Author Accelerator program. So it's no joke. I mean, it's not like a weekend thing. It was a year.
Wow.
And at that same time, my girlfriend started the Erie Cancer Wellness Center. And it is a center for individuals who are dealing with or have loved ones who are dealing with cancer.
Mm.
And it is all free, mostly free of charge. And it's the things that's not chemo and radiation. It's not physicians. It is yoga, writing, Reiki, grief groups, support groups, art therapy, all of those ancillary services that make you feel like you still have a full life while you're going through something extremely difficult. And so my friend said, I know you'll be able to do this because you're an excellent writer, which I was, obviously like, okay, thanks. Thanks for the vote of confidence, but also the medical aspect of it. But I didn't know what that looked like. I had to make sure that it was legitimate because these people were coming in for help, for healing through writing. And so that's when I went, and at the same time as my book coaching, I went through and got a certification in therapeutic journaling through the Journal to the Self program. And that is a fantastic program that offers a little more than 15 techniques to approach a blank page. And so I'm still teaching there pretty much once a week, off and on. I have a curriculum there. And that's how I started to kind of expand and take my cognitive rehab, my love for language, and then add in the writing and the journaling. Such a long answer.
No, no, that's a great background. You have extensive training, but also is based in science. And I think that that's going to come through today.
So everything, and I hope that that definitely comes through because I really believe that everything has to be grounded in science and education. This
Mm.
isn't stuff that I'm making up, which unfortunately sometimes in today's world, you don't know what to believe and you don't know what's true. And I am not AI. You'll notice with all of the mistakes I make that I am not AI. And
Mm.
this is grounded in really great scientific literature. So it's all backed up. And so that's what makes it even more real and concrete for me.
So, speaking of science, let's talk
Yeah.
about the brain science.
Sure.
Can you explain what is happening in the brain when we write?
So the first thing I want to say is when I instruct journaling, and I always say journaling with a pen to paper is optimal. If that's not possible for you, then please type. If typing isn't possible, then please speak into your phone.
Mm.
It's better to have something than nothing. Like, I don't ever want anybody to think, well, I can't write on a piece of paper that doesn't work for me for some reason, so I guess I just won't journal. Hand to paper, pen to paper does activate different neural connections in your brain. When you are writing, you're using the language centers, right? You're using your left temporal parietal, Broca's area, Wernicke's area. And so you're formulating all of those words. You're trying to figure out which words you're gathering, the words that you want to use. Then we're organizing those. So that's a different part of the brain. We're organizing, we're sequencing them. We are putting them in the like priority, what do we want to do first? And then we're translating all of that in fine motor skill to our hand. And so we are
Mm.
just activating so many different areas of the brain just by writing. In fact, there is research that shows that when students want to remember something, when they write the notes or when they recap even anything that is on pen to paper, that they are more likely to remember it, which is really a shame because pretty much everything is done on iPads and computers, and they don't really write that often.
So you bring up a couple good points. So first, yes, when I was in med school, I wrote out my big cheat sheets, pen to
Right.
paper or pencil to paper. But
Mhm.
also, I'm thinking about what you said a few minutes ago, that you are not AI, and a lot of people offload all of these things and processes that are happening in our brain to AI, and it's not happening. It's like dumping off this work onto AI. But at the same time, something you said to me the other day is really interesting, that you said structured writing reduces cognitive load. So
Yeah.
you can offload to AI to reduce your cognitive load, but also writing can reduce cognitive load. Can you explain that portion of it to me?
Sure. And I think, with the AI, I'm not 100% against it. I mean, I
Mm.
will tell you, I love Perplexity. I mean, that is such a great tool for finding the science and finding actual resources. But when we give our authority and our agency to a computer and we say, hey, write this for me or organize this for me, we are actually kind of telling our brain, oh, you're not able to do that. You don't have the capability, and we're also not working our brains. We're just allowing ourselves to hand that over. So with the cognitive load, we have, I believe it's between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day. And how 90% of them are the same thoughts that we had yesterday. We
Mm.
are on this perpetual habitual loop of thoughts. And the cognitive offloading is probably my favorite technique because it's super easy and it's what I start every med school class with. And it was interesting. When I first started teaching there, the students are overwhelmed. This is the first time they've sat in a medical school and they've already studied 3 hours of anatomy or biochemistry or whatever it was in the morning. And then I come along and they're like, oh my God, they just want to go home and study. And the very first thing I say is put everything away. put your computer away, put your phone away. We're going to do some cognitive offloading. And I lead them in a very, very short meditation of locating, identifying, and noticing what comes up in their brain. What's going on? What are you thinking about? And then having them in no order. This isn't prose, this isn't pretty, just dump it out. We can call it a brain dump. I like cognitive offloading because it's really just that we're taking all of our extensive thoughts, all of the things that are swirling around and spiraling and things we might be perseverating on, like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here, and putting it on the page. And then we get to look at it and we get to decide if it's true, if it's important, if we can cross things off, or we just get to look at it and go, yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot of information. And I don't have to think about that right now. That's out of my head. It's tangible, it's concrete, it is visible. And so that allows them to give me maybe 40 minutes of, I don't have to worry about that. And it also helps because maybe by the second or third day, when they are truly frazzled with, oh my gosh, I am not going to be able to remember all of the, muscle innervations, whatever they happen to be on. I tell them, what was your lecture about this morning? Think of everything that the professor said and write it out. And it surprises them. It surprises them with how much they paid attention or maybe how much they didn't. And so again, it's out of their head, but it's also a form of recall. So we're really utilizing our brains for more than just storing things. The pen and the paper are a strategy for making our brains work even better for us.
And perhaps a new strategy for the younger generation.
Yes. And I will say by the second day, they saw me coming and they just packed up all their stuff and they were sitting there like just waiting. They were
Wow.
already anxious for a little bit of downtime, some of them. Anyway, I chose to look at the ones who were ready.
I love it. And yes, I'll come back to the medical students
Okay.
in a minute for sure. But there's so much to talk about. But I do want to talk about briefly menopause and perimenopause and
Yes.
brain fog, because this is another
Yeah.
area of interest for you. What does the research show?
Yeah, so I actually work within Dr. Heather Hirsch's, she is a menopause physician, and I work within her concierge medicine practice and her collaborative. And I've spoken on stages at menopause conferences, and it's really interesting because when Dr. Mosconi came out with her research saying that, hey, the estrogen isn't just in your reproductive system, it's all over. It's in your joints, it's in your brain. And so as estrogen declines, she really attributed the brain fog, those brain fog moments, the why did I walk into this room? Which we've all had. It's like, what was I saying? I have friends who have stopped mid-sentence and it's like, yeah, I get it. Don't worry about it. It'll come back
Mhm.
to you. So we have, I think it's roughly 40 to 50% of women report that they experience some kind of brain fog. Usually I think the first symptom or the most rated symptom is the hot flashes. And then we have the brain fog and memory loss and word retrieval issues. And a lot of women, it's interesting, a lot of women are like, I think I have ADHD. And they could, but it could also just be that loss of estrogen. And I think that it's a little bit of an identity crisis because maybe we are changing careers. Maybe we're ending a career. Maybe if you had kids, they're leaving. And it is the most prominent question that I get in my classes is, what's next? What am I supposed to do now? It is like, well, my life is changing. My identity is changing because of that. And now what the heck is happening to my body? And
Mhm.
it's uncomfortable. And so we don't recognize a lot of things. We don't recognize that who we once were and we were very fluent and we could talk. Maybe you were giving presentations at work and it's like all of a sudden you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not organized. I'm at a loss for words, literally. And so the journaling that I teach is really strategic. And so it is structure and it is intentional. And with the therapeutic journaling techniques that I couple those with the cognitive rehab. And the techniques target different areas of the brain. Sometimes there's a little bit of an artistic technique or tool. And then a lot of them are really focusing on the prefrontal cortex, which is that organizing, prioritizing, categorizing, problem solving, focusing, paying attention to task, being able to initiate a task, which a lot of times menopause tends to kind of put like a wet blanket on that. And so the tools that we use, the prompts that I use, are specifically designed to target those areas. And it's kind of like lifting weights. I like to call journaling the weighted vest for the brain. We're using it.
Mm.
We don't want to use it. It's kind of like use it or lose it. And so we need to keep using it. And obviously, it's not the whole factor. We have hormone replacement, we have making sure that your healthy lifestyle. And part of the healthy lifestyle is also stress reduction. And journaling is proven to increase mindfulness, decrease stress, and is also proven to decrease cortisol. So I feel like it's almost a no-brainer to say, give it a shot.
Yeah. It sounds like a breath of fresh air. That's what comes to me.
It's not a bowl of cottage cheese, and I don't talk about anything that's not writing. There's no, no, I don't dive into what's not my area of expertise. This is just, it's just a little, it's a different avenue.
Right. It's complementary.
Yes.
It reminds me of what you were just talking about with the patients with cancer. It's all of the other things that help them feel human.
Yes.
I do want to get back to medical training and burnout. This is a passion of mine too. And you mentioned your classes and how you speak to the medical
Mhm.
students. You were talking to me about third-year medical students and what have studies shown. So I don't
Yeah.
want to give it away.
The studies, so this was something I knew I wanted to tackle. I married my husband 2 weeks before he started medical school, and my son is a second year med student. And so I'm like medical school adjacent.
Mhm.
I've seen this before, and I know the cognitive toll, and talk about a mental load. I mean, really, just the stress. And so I was so pleased when I did do the research, and the research shows that there was one specific study by, I don't know if I say his name correctly, it's Hojat, where they studied medical students. And by the third year of medical school, they found a pretty significant enough decrease in empathy with an increase in burnout. And your audience is going to know third year, they haven't even seen anybody yet. They haven't even come face to face with patients necessarily. So I just feel like if we can give these physicians to be a few tools that can help them move through medical school with just an ounce of resilience, a little bit more, you know? And when you journal, there are some techniques. There are things like captured moments and dialogue and unsent letters. And those are tools that I teach. And what it really allows them to do is to get into the mindset and change the perspective so that maybe they're looking at the scene differently. And that's what you need, in my opinion, right? From a physician, you need them to be able to see the perspective from somebody else's viewpoint, the patient, the patient's family. That is what lends itself to empathy. I teach it. I hope that they at least put it in their pocket and maybe use it when they think that it's necessary. Or maybe they'll think when they're in a rotation somewhere, like, oh, yeah, wait, what was that lady saying? What am I supposed to do again? Because the more we can give a story, the more we recognize somebody else's story, and the more we can see ourselves in somebody else's story, then we can change how we act and react to that.
100%. Yes. And you have created a program. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So I teach at Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine, which is a
Okay.
very large osteopathic program, but I do teach up in Northwest PA. And I teach the art and science of medicine, and it's mindful writing for resilience and burnout. And it's very specific. I think what's interesting is this isn't hard. I'm not asking them to do anything really crazy.
Mhm.
Um, it's not nearly as difficult as, it's not even close to as difficult as what they're actually studying, but all of the tools that I choose to teach them can be used for improving their empathy, improving their grit a little bit, but also as study tools. So if they are studying muscular structure or something like that, and they can't remember something, write a captured moment is like a vignette. So write a vignette about it and give
Yeah.
all of those muscles they're all characters. And hey, this one does this and this one does this. And write it out in a way that is creative and different and make it outlandish if you need to, because I'll bet you remember it.
So you're creating a story around that, but also I'm sure you're recruiting other parts of their brain to
Yes.
work together with the
Yeah.
logical parts.
Right,
I
left,
mean,
prefrontal cortex, all of it. It's just everything, left
just light
temporal.
it up.
Yeah, exactly. I would,
Yeah.
yeah, really. We need to have some things, whether, I don't, is that an EEG that would show that maybe?
Yeah, everything's
Yeah.
firing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything's firing.
Let's
And
work
it's
together.
so the important thing is too, when you think of memories that really stick with you, they're usually stories and they usually have an
Mhm.
emotion attached. So if we can create more stories and emotions attached to things that we really need to remember, then we're going to remember that. My son is studying for boards and he has his piece of paper for the things that if he misses and he writes it down on his paper. And it's just even that whole like, okay, what are you telling yourself? What is that inner narrative? Because your inner narrative really creates your outer world. And you, as the author, have agency to create the world that you want to live in. And so if I want to be this physician, then maybe I need to think outside the box. And it's not just staring at the iPad and it's not just scrolling through all of the lectures.
Well, what strikes me is that what you're teaching medical students applies to all of us. So even today, if I wanted to learn something new, I could use the same techniques.
Yes, absolutely.
So for listeners today, if there's just one small tidbit or tip for them
Sure.
that they could implement in their life, what would you suggest?
I would say spend 5 minutes. Don't make it precious. You don't need a special pen. You don't need a special journal. You don't need a candle or a lit fire or a chai tea or any of that. If you want to, go for it. If you want to make it romantic and a ritual, have at it. But really, something that's interesting is open up to a blank page and at the top of the page, write down the first word that comes to mind and then just see what happens and write on that word. Even if the first sentence is, I don't know what made me think of that. A kind of a funny story. I was writing and the first word that came to mind was boomerang. So I wrote it down. And then I wrote some gratitude. I always try to do a little things like of what I'm grateful for. Again, it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be precious. And then I wrote down a to-do list and then I went back to boomerang. And it ended up being me coming back to something. And so it's funny how your brain works. Your brain is giving you hints. We just need to quiet down and listen.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's getting it on that paper so you can look at it more objectively.
And I do believe in reviewing your journals. I would ask everybody to read what they wrote and maybe circle a really cool word or a word that stands out. And notice it's kind of like panning for gold. Notice something that you did or said that was brilliant because we don't do that often enough.
Well, panning for gold is exciting.
I
So
know.
you're going to find a
Yeah, you're going to
nugget.
find
Yeah.
some. Mhm.
Yeah. And it's there. You just have to look for it.
Yes, you do.
Great analogy.
Thank you.
So, where can people learn more about your work or where can they connect with you?
Well, I am on Substack, and that
Oh,
is
okay.
under my name and the Right Remedy, WRITE Remedy. And within that, I have the Lit Lounge, and then there are going to be, especially, I have a couple offers where I do almost like a hotline with women. It's more high achieving women, women who are just really busy, but they need to talk things through. Like they are not quite sure where to go, what to do, that whole what's next. And so I have the Lit Hotline, and that is us talking a couple
Hmm.
times a month and me giving you journal prompts and us writing, like writing together. So it's me kind of leading you on the page. And then I'm also a book coach, and I love I love talking to people about their books, nonfiction and fiction. It sounds super strange and I don't want to be cringy, but I can sometimes see the story before they can. Like I can see the thread and what you need to weave through it. And it just makes me really excited to have people's dreams come true. Like, because I talk to so many women who are like, I've always wanted to write a book. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like, why not? And that is always my question when women say, well, what's next? And I'm like, well, what do you think it could be? And they say something that they think is, out of their realm of possibility. And I go, why not? I kind of coined a term called storypenia, and I equate it to osteopenia, where, osteopenia and osteoporosis, and it signifies bone density loss and frailty and weakness and shrinking. But when we lose our stories in midlife and we lose our narrative and we don't believe in what's possible for us, we have frailty and weakness and shrinking. And so we need to build our stories again, whether that's internally or physically on the page.
Let that sink in and
Yeah.
rewind and listen to that again. So I will listen to that again. Excellent words of wisdom. I
Thank you.
really appreciate your being here today and giving us just a peek into your life.
Thank you so much again for having me. This has been just a wonderful morning, and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Inspired Mom MDs podcast. If this episode resonates with you, please share it with a friend who might benefit too. And I'd be so grateful if you left a review so other women can find me too. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn and explore free resources at inspiredmommds.com. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and isn't a substitute for medical advice or care. I'm a board-certified physician, but this content isn't connected to my clinical practice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed here. Please always talk to your own health professional about any mental or physical health concerns. And as always, take what helps and leave the rest. See inspiredmommds.com for full disclaimer.